Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to Earth Day 2021. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Jim Chapman. I'm the regional chef for the Intuit portfolio based out of Mountain View, California. And today I'm preparing a dish for you that is totally Earth Day in so many ways. It's a plant-forward dish, reducing our carbon footprint by eating vegetables. It's got a lot of great healthy components to it. We're recreating a classic, Pozole, but it's going to be vegan. Very interesting recipe. I've made this a bunch of times and people really enjoy it. We're going to build these different flavors using all vegan products to recreate this classic that usually has animal protein in it. So we're going to get started. So right here we have a pot and we're going to turn that on, get it nice and hot. We're going to add some olive oil to it. And then we're going to saute some garlic and jalapenos to get that started. We'll let it warm up a little bit first. Make sure we don't scorch the bottom, but we want to make sure it's hot. So we're going to go with the garlic. Cook that up a little bit. For me, the key to cooking garlic, you want to make sure that you can smell the toasted aroma of the garlic. That really harsh, strong garlic flavor becomes nice and toasted and becomes nice and perfumey. You can smell it now. It's got kind of a harsh tang to it. You guys know what I'm talking about when you first start cooking the garlic. But as it browns and starts to cook, that harshness goes away and it turns sweet. We're going to add some jalapeno to that. Aromatics, so the backbone of our flavors here. And some onion as well. So we're going to cook that till it's just about translucent. So you take a look and see how much onion we have. That's about one medium red onion. And it's really important to saute this each layer to build the flavors that we're going to need to give this soup the traditional flavor profile that we originally got with the meat-based one. So we're building layers of flavor here that's going to give us texture and exactly what we're looking for. So we got the onions, the garlic, and the jalapeno in there. And we're going to saute that for a second here. Now, instead of animal proteins, we're using a tempeh, which is fermented soy here, and we crumble it up. That's going to give us some texture and flavor as well. So we're going to let that, I'm going to add that in a second. I want to make sure these onions get a little bit translucent and wake up their flavors as well. You really smell that.
And we have a question. You're using a red onion. Can you use a different kind of onion, or
yes,
does it change it?
It does change it, but not in a way that's catastrophic. I like to use sweet onions. Some chefs prefer white or yellow, but we had red one today, and that actually came with this recipe, so we just followed it. Good question, though. Just going to season our layers a little bit too, so I'm just going to add a little salt and pepper at this point as it kind of wakes up the flavors of our aromatics. And I find that layering seasoning the layers helps us get where we want. So we're going to go with the tempeh now. Okay, quite a bit of that, and that's going to help us with texture and flavor and give us some vegan protein as well. We're going to let that saute a little bit. Again, seasoning our layers, a little more salt and pepper. Boy, I wish you guys could smell this. This is really good.
I was about to say, it smells amazing. I wish everybody could smell this.
So we want to cook that. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit because I want it to brown just a bit too. Browning the tempeh is going to give us a little bit of color and cooks away all that raw flavor as well. So while that's working, I'm going to turn it up a little more, get some good color on there. We are going to slurry the rest of our spices together in a little bit of water to add to the broth. We're using a vegetable stock for this, but we're going to add our spices here. Thank you. We're going to add our spices to our slurry here. So I have about 2 cups of water. We're going to use a whisk. And yes, this is cocoa powder, believe it or not. This is where we're going to get some of those flavor profiles from. The backbone of the flavor is chili powder and cocoa. And, you can use your own favorite chili powder. This is ancho, which is one of my favorites. Cinnamon, another interesting layer of flavors there. You can see where we needed to kind of incorporate all this here so it doesn't get lumpy. Okay, we're going to go with our oregano and cumin. and then a bit of honey to add a little sweetness, because traditionally this is made with pork, this soup, and turkey pozole is really popular too. And those are kind of sweet meats. We want to add a little bit of sweetness to it, and that's where that honey comes in there. All right, so we're going to let that kind of, what this is going to do also is the water is going to open up the spices a little bit. To let them bloom a touch before we get going here.
Does it matter the cocoa powder that you use?
Oh yes, unsweetened cocoa powder. Sorry, unsweetened is important because you want to be able to control the amount of sweetness. And a lot of times those baking cocos that are sweetened or for hot chocolate have just too much sugar, so you don't want it to be too sweet. So you can see here we're getting nice, starting a nice caramelization. You can hear it too. You can hear the crackling on the bottom. That's the liquid releasing from everything in there, and then creating some caramelization. All right. Anybody have any questions at this point? You can fire away in the chat box. All right.
Where do you get the tempeh from?
I've seen it in the produce aisle, usually where the tofu is and the other vegan or vegetarian proteins. You can find them there. And they come in cakes usually, or I'm pretty sure you can find them crumbled, but the cakes crumble up pretty easily. And it's a fermented soybean cake that I use. You can also use tofu in this, and if you're going to use tofu, I recommend the firm one because it's going to crumble kind of like a chorizo almost, believe it or not. You can make a really great vegan chorizo out of firm tofu. You can see on the bottom here, a little bit of brown bits starting to form. That's what we want. So I'm going to let that keep on caramelizing a touch. I'm going to add a nice splash of lime juice to our slurry over here, our slurry of spices. Okay. All that's going to get added to this in just a moment. See that browning there? I'm going to pull it away to look at it, but then I'm going to cover it back up, and it'll kind of deglaze once it gets more moisture in the release. But I'm going to add the water to it, and that'll deglaze it as well.
What does the word deglaze mean? Deglaze
is the term that means to remove, it's called fond, F-O-N-D, the stuff that collects at the bottom of the pan there. It starts to caramelize is called fond, and fond is the base of flavor. So you want fond, but you don't want fond to burn. When it burns, you get a lot of bitter, and it changes the flavor in a negative way. So deglaze means to remove that layer of fond using liquid. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. You can start to see the color down there? Starting to get a nice brown. I want more, so I'm going to let it go just a touch more, and then we'll deglaze with our slurry of water and spices. All right. Boy, you can hear that crackling. Got some nice color going on there. So we're going to go ahead and slowly add this. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to scrape the bottom. I'm going to grab a spoon for that task because it kind of helps. See, it's releasing all of the fond from the bottom there just by a little splash of water. All of those little bits are going to come off the bottom and add to the flavor of this dish. Oh my God, it smells so good. All right, so we got all of our fond off of there. Get rid of that noisy spoon. And we're going to add the rest of our liquid right in there with all of our spices. Make sure you use a spatula and get all the good stuff out. And we're going to bring this up to a simmer before we continue on because I want all these flavors now to meld and to get up to temperature as well.
Is there a particular brand of veggie broth that you suggest?
No, I know the packaged ones you can buy. I prefer buying the organic ones because there's not a lot of preservatives in there. Veggie stock is really easy to make. Just as simple as celery, carrots, onions, and I like mushrooms in mine to give it that flavor as well, a little umami to it when I make my veggie stock. But you can use all kinds of different veggies to create your own. But I don't really have a particular brand. But if I'm going to buy it from the store, I usually go with the organic one. All right, so just about it's a simmer time here. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to taste. You always want to taste as you go to make sure you're building those layers of flavors and seasoning them. So let's give it a shot. All right, it's getting there. I got all the spices and all the background flavors that I'm looking for. And then I'm going to add zucchini and hominy. So the hominy is the traditional corn that goes into pozole. And that's going to lend a lot of flavor to this and texture as well. So I'm going to go with the hominy and bring that up to a simmer. It's going to soften up a little bit. And then we'll add the zucchini. And then we got to let this just simmer a little bit and all those flavors to marry before it's ready to garnish and eat. All right, so just kind of bring that up to a simmer. It'll take a second here, guys.
Do you have suggestions for what to serve with the pozole?
So pozole is practically a meal in itself. So traditionally, you garnish it with fresh cilantro or shredded cabbage, some fresh diced onion usually goes on there. Depending on how spicy you make it, you can add hot sauce or something like that. And then crispy tortilla strips as well. It's nice to add texture and crunch to it, texture and flavor rather to the end. All right, we're going to go with the veggie stock in here and get this whole thing simmering. There's our veggie stock. And I turn this heat up all the way now so it'll come to a boil and let it simmer. And this is the part where I wish we had fast forward for you guys. It'll take a minute, but go ahead and ask any questions you guys have in the box. What are you doing to celebrate Earth Day? Let me know. I'd love to hear some other ideas from folks. See what you guys are doing. I'm going to add the zucchini now and let that simmer in as well while we're talking.
Where do you get the hominy? Can you substitute with just regular corn?
You know, you can put regular corn in there, but hominy has a very unique flavor. It was dried corn that's rehydrated with lime, and it changes the texture a little bit. So adding sweet corn, you can definitely do that, but it will be different. As far as where to get it, any Mexican market in your local area has it, and even a lot of the grocery chains have a Latin section or a Mexican food section, and it's usually found in cans, and it's stored in water. Here, a little bit of tamari, so that's gluten-free soy sauce. This also adds a very unique flavor profile that's going to help us with achieving our goals here. So we'll do another little flavor taster here.
So with this recipe, this would be a gluten-free recipe. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is gluten-free and vegan. I'm going to add a little bit more salt here as it simmers. And some more oregano. I'm save some oregano for garnish too. You can put some dry oregano on top.
Is zucchini a traditional addition to this recipe, or is this?
No, I don't think it's traditional. This is for the vegan version. I found this in a cookbook, a vegan cookbook a while back. So this is their recipe that they used. So that's what one I'm following today. And you can use any vegetables you want. The main flavor that is kind of mimicking the pozole is all in those spices that we added, the cocoa and the cumin and the oregano and the cinnamon and the tamari. All those things are helping us get to the flavor that we were looking for, that really hearty, herby flavor from the pozole. If you add cauliflower to this instead of the zucchini, or broccoli instead of the zucchini, it'll be fine. It's just going to have the flavor of broccoli or cauliflower versus the zucchini. I like the zucchini personally because it's a nice neutral squash, and once it cooks all the way, it still holds its shape to a point, and the texture of the vegetable, of the zucchini and the hominy in your mouth, it kind of mimics what the pork was, along with the tempeh. Obviously, that kind of gives you kind of a meaty texture to it in the vegan protein. So yeah, you can use just different vegetables. This is just the recipe that we're following here. That's the beauty of this recipe. Even if you just have the hominy and the spices in your pantry at home, and you have some other vegetables that maybe you come out of your garden, or your neighbor dropped off some stuff in their garden, farmer's market in town, you can substitute to make it fit with what you have. I tell you, all this tasting, it's the worst part of my job. Can you tell? Love it.
In a traditional pozole, can you substitute the pork for poultry and still achieve the same flavor profile?
Well, it'll taste different. It'll taste, if you're using turkey, it'll taste more like turkey, and same for chicken. Chicken's kind of a neutral flavor. So again, a lot of the flavors come from the spices that we use, and it will taste like pork or turkey or chicken depending on what you're making as your protein. But yes, you can definitely substitute them, and it will be a little bit different. But the backbone and all the major flavors are the same. It's kind of how they built the soup. Okay, we're cranked all the way up here, folks. Bear with me on the simmer. What you're looking for, all right, let's talk about timing a little bit here. What you're looking for is it's going to come to a boil. All those flavors are going to continue to marry. The spices are all going to open up and bloom and go with everything else. The tempeh will soften. The hominy will absorb some of the flavor and soften as well. So what I'm looking for right now is to get the zucchini to the point that I want, because if you continue boiling it, it will fall apart and just disintegrate, or the other stuff will still stay kind of whole. So I'm going to cook this until the zucchini's done, and it'll be ready to serve at that point.
We have a question about roasted tomatoes, or I guess a suggestion.
Yep, I like it. Nothing wrong with that. And just that we didn't do it in this recipe. And traditionally, I don't usually do it in my pork pozole either. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. That's for sure. I know there's like a lot of ethnic cuisine. There's a lot of variations to what you would consider traditional based on family preferences and the way we were taught by our ancestors, basically, which is kind of the cool thing about cuisine is that everybody could make it different, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nice and diverse.
If you can't get the tortilla strips remade, how would you prepare this?
Oh, that's a good question. You can use fresh tortillas. It's not as crunchy, obviously, but it'll still give you some flavor and texture. But to me, that's kind of boring. So I like to add that crunch to it. That's why I use the fried ones. But you can also bake tortilla strips. So you would cut them the same way and just toss them lightly in a little bit of olive oil or a neutral oil, like a canola, or sunflower or something like that. And then just a little seasoning with salt and pepper. Lay them out flat and bake them in the oven until they're crispy and get the color that you want. So that's actually a healthier way of doing it, so you don't have to fry. That's one way I would do it for sure. Good question.
Are corn tortillas or flour tortillas more traditional?
For this, you want to use corn tortillas, because if you look into this, you're putting corn. It's got hominy in it, which is corn. So that it pairs really well and gives you just another layer of corn flavor to it. The flour ones, I feel like they'll turn into dough or like a dumpling because the corn kind of firms up in the liquid before it disintegrates, where the flour will just turn into like dough. So I wouldn't use flour for this application. All right, we're starting to get a little action here, folks. So for the sake of time, I think we're gonna call it here, but you want to bring it to a boil and let it simmer for 10 or 15 minutes or so. But again, I look for when the zucchini is done so it doesn't get overcooked. So I'm gonna open it up to any more questions before I go ahead and finish plating it up.
I've got a question. Where do you get your food inspiration from?
Wow, a lot of places. My whole entire life. My family background of people cooking at home. My grandmother, my father. I get probably 2 or 3 magazines, monthly magazines. There's actually, for professionals, there's actually a few free ones out there, so you don't necessarily have to buy the subscription to get inspiration from them. I do like cookbooks. I like cookbooks and magazines more or less for ideas, not necessarily always for following the recipe, but to give me ideas on how to kind of play with the dishes. And then my wife will tell you I always take recipes from cookbooks and I twist them in some way, because that's fun for me, to have fun with it. So, she jokes with me because I never make tuna salad the same way at home. It's always different vegetables and herbs and this and that, where instead of just putting mayonnaise and celery like my mom did. But yeah, lots of different ways. I get inspired by my staff, the people that I work with, my colleagues. Definitely television and YouTube now is huge for research. So yeah, that's a very good question. There's lots of different ways to find inspiration, but when you're passionate about it and you like cooking, it's always just fun to experiment. Sometimes it works. Most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't, which is also okay too, because you can learn from your mistakes.
Well, I've got a question and a comment from a chef, David Young. He wanted to know, can you use black garlic in this? And he wants you to know that you are his inspiration.
Thanks, Dave. How are you, buddy? Chef David Young, everybody. Dave, black garlic is a very unique flavor. So is it against the rules to use it? No, absolutely not. But if you're familiar with black garlic, and if you're not familiar with black garlic, it has kind of a licorice flavor to it. Now, I wouldn't have thought to put it in here, but I would definitely try that. I think it'd be kind of neat. Definitely not traditional, as far to my knowledge. But I would experiment with it on myself before I served it to my customers. But yeah, why not? Give it a try. I think you have some in your cooler. I saw it last time I visited you. So and you're my inspiration. I love your spirit, David. Thanks for commenting. Appreciate it.
We have a question. Although this would, render it vegetarian instead of vegan, what kind of cheese would you add to this?
Oh, boy. That's a very good question. Chihuahua would be good. I'm thinking cotija. Cotija, for me, it's kind of a drier cheese when it crumbles, and it's got some what's the word? It's kind of an acidic flavor. It's got a tang. That's what I was looking for. Kind of a citrusy tang. So that would be very well to put that as a garnish on here. And I know there's vegan cheeses out there too, guys. So if you like to use that, that would work on the as a garnish as well to finish it off. All right, we got a nice simmer going here. Look at that. You can see how the texture is changing a little. It's kind of thickening up a little bit as the tempeh crumbles, and the hominy does as well. It's going to help thicken and give it a texture. Now, traditionally, pozole is a brothy soup, so you don't really want it thick per se. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. Getting crazy now. We got it all boiling. Any other questions or comments out there?
This is a comment from me, the moderator, just to say, I wish that you could smell this. It is amazing. It smells so good.
Yeah, if you're familiar with pork pozole, this has the same amount of flavor in the air right now. It's really astounding. It really blew me away the first time I made it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot lately because, people for health reasons or trend, whatever you want to call it, are trying to eat vegan more often. Maybe not all the time, but maybe a couple times a week have a vegetable-centered meal. So that vegetable-centered does not mean vegetarian or vegan at all. This soup right here, to make it vegetable-centered, I could add crumbled pork to it or crumbled turkey or something like that, and as long as it's not like the main ingredient. That's veg-centered. So you're eating more vegetables than you are animal proteins. But if you want to go vegan, this is a pretty cool alternative to an animal protein style super stew. Thanks, Nate. I'm glad you're here to smell this.
Yeah, that's the other advantage I have. I also get to try it.
Yes, you do. So I'm going to go ahead and taste one more time. I think just for seasoning, and we'll plate this up with you guys. Oh, yeah. All right, we're going to have just a little bit more salt and pepper. See, the purpose of tasting as you go is so you can adjust. If you added all this at the beginning, you might add too much. So you can always add, but you can't take away when it comes to salt and pepper. So be careful with that. All right. Turn that down a little bit. Any other questions? We'll go ahead and plate it up. We got a nice bowl here. Here's a little tip or trick for you guys out there when it comes to ladling food. This is an ergonomic ladle. See the angle on it there? It kind of makes it easier for our customers to help themselves when we're having soup stations in our cafes. But if you kind of choke up on the ladle a little bit and hold it like a pencil, and then take about 3/4 of the broth in the spoon. You can see that. And then lift it up and then dip the bottom of the ladle back into the broth, and there's no drips. So it helps for a nice clean plate up. I've got a good grip on the handle there. I'm dipping it back in to make a nice clean service. It's a little tip for you guys. So got a good amount of broth in here. It's a nice big bowl. I'm gonna feed this to Nate. He's gonna take his afternoon nap here. All right. You guys can see that. So I've got my tortilla strips here. I'm gonna put a good amount of that on there for a little texture and flavor, like that. Okay. A little fresh cilantro. This is just a very simple garnish. You can go bananas with it too, and add not bananas. You can go crazy with it. you could add the cheese and maybe even sour cream or some other kind of garnishes if you want to. But we're going to go with that: oregano, cilantro, and tortillas. And there you have it, everybody. Vegan pozole. Boy, I wish you could see Nate's face. He's like drooling over here. He's so excited.
We have a couple of comments.
Sure.
we have one from a beautiful woman named Viviana. Great tip. Thanks, Chef Jim.
Thank you.
Dave wishes he was here. Christine says this is awesome. She learned great things, had fun, looks so delicious. Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day.
Applauding. And yes, to share the recipe, Kelly, I will send you a copy of the recipes. You can also go to the Urest Synopsis website, and it'll have a list of all of the recipes. But I'll just email them to you. If anybody else would like a copy of the recipe, just feel free to email me and I'll send it back.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and all the love. Happy Earth Day to all of you. Go out there and do something good for Mother Earth, because she's taking care of us all this time and take care of our kids for the rest of their lives too. So it's a good idea to start doing a little something as much as we can. A little bit equals a lot. So I'm very happy to be here with you on Earth Day today and letting me share this dish with you. For that, I thank you all.